I would say this is one of the most disappointing positive losses all season, right? Like they had a lot of positive in this game, and you wish that positive could have gave you the W ultimately. But in the end, the Saints fall short to the Minnesota Vikings in London, and we're going to get into that. Now, look, if you believe in getting loud and also you got to fight, that means that you love the Saints and the Pelicans. So we have something in common. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And also, make sure you hit that like to help me out with that algorithm, baby. Now, the Saints fall to the Minnesota Vikings, what it was, 25-28, right? And we also are 1-3 on the season. Very disappointing start for the first quarter of the season. Hopefully, October can do us something better. Now, let's go over some of the stats that I wanted to talk about. And then we go over some of the key points. And also, I'm going to tell you something very positive that I saw today that many Saints fans out there may not agree with, but in the end, I think that you'll understand where I'm going at. Now look, the Saints had 19 first downs. On third down efficiency, they was 4 for 10, which was 40%. Fourth down efficiency, 100%. They gave up 2 turnovers. However, our defense had 3 sacks. Positive thing, defense starting to get to the quarterback. However, they committed 10 penalties for 102 yards. That is the difference maker here right there. Those penalties killed the Saints' momentum and also gave the Vikings the edge. Now let's talk about Andy Dalton, right? Andy Dalton was 28 attempts. He completed 20 of them, 71% on his passes, 8.4 yard per attempt average, 1 touchdown, and the QBR of 108. I think Andy Dalton did a very good job today behind the Saints, man. I mean, that's crazy. And not to mention Andy Dalton had 224 yards, right? That's positive coming from the quarterback position. And also, Andy Dalton gave us our first passing touchdown of the first half this season. Could you imagine that it has taken us 4 games to achieve that success, right? We're going to talk about that later. So the Saints are 1-3, right? Let's talk about some of the highlights of the game. Saints get their first INT of the season, committed by none other than the homeboy, Tyrann Mathieu. That was positive, man. I cannot believe that Tyrann Mathieu finally put the Saints on the board when it came down to the interception category, right? All right. So the Saints had 2 fumbles in the first half. Andy Dalton fumbled from a sack because the offensive line just collapsed. They allowed Andy Dalton to just get confused in the pocket. He didn't have no idea where the pressure was coming from. And also, Dante Hardy fumbled as well, right? As soon as the Saints got the ball back, just a couple of seconds later, here you go, Dante Hardy fumbled. The Vikings will capitalize off of 6 points off of those 2 turnovers. That is another difference maker in this game right here. All right. I feel as if as the game went along, the play calling from our coaching staff got a little better. We went for it on 4th and 4. We got it. It resulted into an Andy Dalton touchdown, right? So I feel as if as the game got going, our coaching staff did get much better. Although I would say it wasn't bad at first, right? It really wasn't. The Vikings was moving the ball at first, but the Saints defense steadily stalled them all game. All right, let's see. Okay, we had a midway through the 4th quarter, right? Taysom Hill scored the touchdown. That was very nice to see Taysom Hill score his 2nd rushing touchdown of the season, man. In fact, the Saints had 2 rushing touchdowns this game. That is positive. That is a good thing, too, because that seems as if the rushing game is starting to pick up, and much of that could do with Latavius Murray coming back into fruition with the Saints offense. See, when we let Mark Ingram go and got Latavius Murray, I felt as if the Saints could have had both of them at the same time. Now, you could possibly see what the result of that could be, right? So I feel as if the Saints should have never had moved on for Mark Ingram, and also they should have never moved on for Latavius Murray. Although I do feel as if replacing Mark Ingram with Latavius Murray was a bad idea. All right. And then he had a phantom illegal hands to the face call that extended the Vikings drive on 3rd and 10, right? The Saints are about to get the ball back. Ref called some illegal hands to the face. They showed the replay of it. It really was just to the shoulder. I don't know what that ref saw, but we got robbed out of that one. right there. The NFL needs to get that in check because pretty soon people out here are going to start to riot. And I'm not advocating for anyone to do that. I'm just saying you can't keep allowing referees to decide possessions. I'm not going to fully say football games because the Saints had chances after that to win this game, but you cannot allow these referees to continue to extend drives when they're supposed to end, resulting into points for the other team. Let's talk about that on one of these videos one day. All right, what else we got? And then they had the fourth quarter, like 4 minutes, 3 minutes left. Penalties just walked them down the field. Marshall Lattimore, he should know better. He's face guarding Jordan Jefferson, right? He's not even really looking for the ball. He turned his head around, but just not in a nick of time to actually get the pass interference call lifted off him. Sure, Jordan Jefferson grabbed the face mask, but you got to realize that referee was already committed to the pass interference call. Anything beyond that, to that referee, the play was dead. All right, I'm just going to say that that's a fair call for that referee. That's a fair call. That's a fair call. All right. Lutz kicking a 60-yard field goal, right? That was very positive for the Saints because Will Lutz never hit a 60-yard field goal in a Saints uniform. And I think he was just 2 yards away from Tom Dempsey. So that is pretty good. That is pretty good. We're going to talk about field goals again in just 1 second. All right. That would be the second longest field goal in Saints history. Yes, yes. All right. But to get to that, right, to get to a second field goal, possibly would have pushed out Will Luck's 60-yard field goal. The Red Rifle took to the stage, and he got the Saints in that same field goal range, maybe 1 or 2 yards different, right? Maybe a yard and a half different, right? He threw one pass. We was there. However, 2 more plays later, the Vikings defense clamped down on them outside routes. I kind of feel like the Saints should have did like a play call with Andy Dalton just running to the outside to get out of bounds because that would have been hard to defend. You know what I'm saying? So you could have got at least another 7 yards doing that. You had like 12 seconds left on the game. So to me, the coaching staff dropped the ball there, right? They dropped the ball with that play calling. You don't need to pass it. Right, Will Lutz just not too long ago hit a 60-yard field goal. Common sense would tell you, let's just try to get him around that 55-yard, 54-yard attempt. You know what I mean? So what you're going to do there is you're going to spread everybody out, make it seem like you're going to those outsides, and you're going to allow Andy Dalton to run to get to the outside. Even if he gets 2 yards on this run, it gets Will Lutz closer. Now, I wanted to talk about the positive I saw in this game. I have given Jameis Winston the opportunity to be the Saints quarterback, right? I'm pretty sure all of us have done so. But when it comes down to the Saints style of offense, I feel like Andy Dalton fits it much better. I am so sorry. You got to realize Andy Dalton put the Saints in a position to win, right? Without Michael Thomas and also without Alvin Kamara. At one point in time, Chris Olave was the only playmaker on the field. Andy Dalton got it done with efficiency and not to mention confidence. I feel as if Andy Dalton should be the Saints quarterback. I know a lot of people out there are not going to agree with me on this, but for what I saw, this loss was very disappointing. However, the positive I saw in it is if we had Andy Dalton for the previous 3 games, we most likely will be in a better position right now. Maybe you might even be 2-2. You just never know. Because the game against the Bucs, I feel as if Andy Dalton would have won that game. Many people out there are not going to accept that, but that is the hard truth. As Saints fans, we got to realize we are searching for that quarterback to fit our scheme, right? And Andy Dalton, right now, from what I saw, he did a good job against Minnesota. At some point in the times, he was looking a little Drew-like, right? You got to realize, before those last 2 possessions, Andy Dalton had only missed a total of 4 passes in that game. Think about that for a second. That is why the Saints was put in the position to win this game. Sure, we had some bad calls from the referees, but you got to see what I saw. Andy Dalton, with more reps as first string quarterbacks, could very well win the Saints multiple games this year. Right now, we're 1-3, but I feel as if you go with Andy Dalton, you could very well end up being 10-7, worst case scenario. Right? That's how I feel. I feel like Andy Dalton did a much better job. And I know a lot of Saints fans out there are not going to want to hear that, but you got to understand, Andy Dalton is a more seasoned quarterback than Jameis Winston. At times under pressure, Andy Dalton knew where to go at with the ball, right? So this is something that Jameis Winston has not done right all season, even though we all could agree that the offensive line play is a lot worse than what it was in previous years. Look at what Andy Dalton managed to do behind that line. Think about that for a second. Now look, I know a lot of people out there in New Orleans are going to be upset about this loss, but hear me out, you guys. We're 1-3. Season's not over yet. You have 13 games left. If you can manage to go 7-2 in your next 9 games, your season will not be over. Andy Dalton may very well be the answer. So you let me know in the comments below how you feel about my opinion. Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Just let me know. We all family on this channel. And just be sure, drive safe and make sure you take care of your family.